Welcome back to The Other Side, where we explore the eerie, the unexplained, and sometimes the downright terrifying. Today's episode is dedicated to those quiet moments in the woods, where your breath fogs in the morning air, your heart slows with anticipation, and something may be watching you from the shadows. These aren't just creepy campfire tales. These are real encounters reported by hunters right here in the backwoods of Kentucky, a place where the veil between our worlds and the unknown runs a little thinner. Today you'll be hearing 3 spine-chilling accounts, one of a ghostly bride beneath a tree stand, a cryptid lurking in Spencer County, and a UFO encounter deep in the land between the lakes. So lock your doors, grab your thermos, settle in, and if you're watching on YouTube, enjoy the Red Dead Redemption gameplay in the background. I'm working my way toward 100,000 subscribers, and I'd like for you to be a part of that because I really want that YouTube play button before I die. Subscribe on YouTube or give a 5-star rating review if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast. If you enjoy this kind of content, that helps me a lot. These are Kentucky hunting horror stories. Let's get into it. The Woman Beneath the Tree Stand. Clint had been hunting in the Daniel Boone National Forest for nearly a decade. Tucked deep into the hollers and ridgelines of eastern Kentucky, it was a sanctuary to him. Crisp November mornings, the smell of pine, the solitude, it was completely peaceful. He had set up early morning, long before the sun peeked over the hills. Perched 20 feet up in his climber tree stand, he waited. The only sounds were the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of crows. As the blue hour crept in, the time just before sunrise, Clint noticed something different on the forest floor. A figure. He then realized it was a woman. She had made her way directly under his tree stand without him knowing. She stood directly below him, barefoot and in a long, flowing white dress. Her hair was long and dark, falling in tangled waves that covered her face. At first, Clint figured she must be lost, maybe a hiker that had wandered too far, but then he slowly began to realize there was no trail near here. He was a solid 2 miles from the closest road. Growing concerned, he whispered, "Ma'am?" No response. He called down again, louder, "Ma'am?" Nothing. She didn't move. She didn't even look up. She didn't sway with the wind or make a sound. She just stood there like a statue placed directly underneath him. Clint felt his chest tighten up. He reached for his rifle, not to aim at her, but just for comfort. That's when she tilted her head up and looked directly at him. Her face, however, shook him to his core. It wasn't a pale face, it wasn't a strange face. It was completely blank. This woman had no eyes, no mouth, no nose, no eyebrows, just smooth skin where the face should have been. It was like somebody had erased her identity entirely. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then, without a sound, the woman vanished. One blink and she was gone. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, just the cold air and silence in the forest again. Clint climbed down as soon as daylight hit and never hunted that patch of forest again. He refused to go back. When he mentioned the story at the local bait shop a week later, the man just nodded solemnly and said, "You seen the Faceless bride. Some say she died on her wedding day, years before the Civil War. Hung herself near the church that got swallowed up by the forest. Shows up to hunters. Always shows up to men. And she's always silent. They say if you see her, you've walked too close to the dead heart of the forest. and you should stray away from that area. Before we move on to the next story, I just want to add, this took place in the Daniel Boone National Forest, according to the person that had sent me the story. The Daniel Boone National Forest is where Cumberland Falls is. And the story I grew up hearing is if you drive down the Falls Road toward Cumberland Falls on foggy nights, moonlit nights, spooky urban legend stuff, as you go around one of the curves toward the falls, you see a ghost bride in the road. And allegedly, a woman and her husband got married at Cumberland Falls, and she slipped off the edge of the falls and drowned, and now her ghost haunts the area. So it's kind of cool that I got submitted a story that, resembles that urban legend from my childhood. The Elk Creek Howler. Spencer County isn't known for much beyond farmland and thick patches of wood near Elk Creek. But if you ask the locals, and I mean really ask, they'll tell you about something else. Something that lives between the trees. Ben and his cousin Jason were turkey hunting just before Halloween. They had been hearing gobblers on the ridge for days and finally decided to track them just before dusk, when the birds often roost. The woods were still, eerily still. Not a squirrel, not a bird, not the wind in the trees. And that's when they heard it in the woods. A scream, a very high-pitched scream that they knew wasn't human in their gut. It echoed off the hills, and then they heard a low, guttural growl. And that was close. Real close. Jason spun in a circle with a shotgun raised, thinking it was a coyote. Ben, on the other hand, when they looked at each other, Ben said, "That ain't no damn coyote." Then they saw something step into view on the opposite ridge. It was massive, and it was at least 8 feet tall. This creature was covered in thick, patchy fur like a wild animal, but it was walking upright. It wasn't a bear and it wasn't a man. It had long arms that they claim hung down to its knees, and its shoulders were impossibly broad. They said it was as wide as a Jeep. It stared directly at them, and they saw the eye shine in the low light. They didn't move, and neither did this thing. Then in one lightning-fast motion, the thing dropped on the all fours and bolted down the slope, and it was covering ground faster than Ben or Jason had ever seen. The two men were scared, obviously, and they started running, tripping on roots and branches and everything, and they were too scared to look back. They could hear this thing behind them at this point, but they didn't think it was chasing them, just following them. Because by this point, they knew it had to slow down or they would have been attacked. It was staying close, almost like it was herding them out of the forest to make sure they left. When they got back to the truck, Jason swore he saw its silhouette watching them from the tree line, still silent, and if he could see the eye shine, probably unblinking. Since then, the story has gone around, and locals have taken to calling it the Elk Creek Howler. Some believe it's a regional Bigfoot, others say it's something far older, maybe a remnant of Native American lore, a guardian spirit, or something else more savage. Whatever it is, it doesn't want people in its woods, especially during the fall hunt. Wow, that's crazy. When I was sent this story, I thought it was going to be a Bigfoot story when I read it, but the person who sent it is kind of adamant that they don't believe it's a Bigfoot, they believe it's something else. What else? A dogman? I'm not sure, but something is lurking around in Spencer County. The lights over Livingston County. Mike was a solo hunter, always had been. Said he didn't like people messing with the quiet of the woods. He set up camp every year near the land between the lakes, a place known for deer, turkey, and Bigfoot stories. This was in October of 1999, and he picked a clearing half a mile from the river and he set up camp with his tree stand nearby. Everything felt normal as first. He found good tracks, there was dry weather. It was perfect for a hunt. But on the third night, something changed. Around 9:30 at night, while sitting by the fire with his logbook, he noticed a strange light in the sky. Not a plane, not a satellite, not a drone, because this was in the 1990s. He claims it zipped in sharp right-angle movements, and it blinked red, blue, and white in a rhythm he had never seen before. It was like the lights were pulsing. And then he heard something. A humming. Low, metallic, almost like a distant generator, but with some strange resonance. The woods have fallen totally silent. Only the humming was out there. And Mike realized the fire seemed dimmer. The air tasted metallic, and his chest felt very tight. He looked up. Hovering just above the treetops was a disc-shaped object, silent and massive. It had a geometric underside that glowed with soft, pulsating lights like veins of fire running beneath the surface. Mike couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He froze. He didn't know how to deal with what he was seeing. Then there was a flash. Just one singular flash. It was bright and hot. It burnt him to the point he had to go to the hospital later on with second-degree burns. When he came to in the middle of the forest, his fire was out, his flashlight was dead, and it was suddenly after midnight. The first thing he noticed was the burns on his skin. The second thing was that 2 hours had passed since he sat down with his logbook. The only mark left on him to this day is a small triangle-shaped burn on the back of his shoulder. He doesn't remember getting it, and he didn't remember anything at all during that time. He claims to have filed a report with MUFON and claims that they logged it as a probable abduction, citing others in the area that same week saw lights over the lake. I have been unable to find any evidence of this claim. If you work for MUFON, let me know if you can pull those records. I just can't find anything online. Now, apparently to this day, Mike won't talk about this in public. He still hunts, but never alone, and never near Livingston County. Some say the lights return every few years, always around October, and hunters report seeing them. Maybe we have our own Marfa Lights in Kentucky. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got. Whether you believe in ghosts, cryptids, or lights in the sky, one thing is for certain. The Kentucky wilderness holds secrets, ancient ones. These stories aren't about fear, they're about crossing into a place where we were never meant to go. The moments where the world turns quiet and somebody takes notice. So the next time you step out in the woods, remember, you may be there to hunt, but something else may be hunting you too. So thank you for listening to The Other Side. If you have a strange encounter while in the woods, camping, hunting, or just exploring, send it to me. My email is on the YouTube channel. It's podtheotherside@gmail.com. Send it my way and we will try to feature it in the next episode. Until next time, keep your eyes open and probably a weapon close by if you're in the woods. Thank you all.